rules for fracking after all if it finds existing federal and state regulations are
The
adequate.
Senate gave final approval Monday night to an adjustment of the 2012 law authorizing hydraulic fracturing for drilling natural gas and directing exploration rules be created. Supporters say the change was needed now because the other fracking rules take effect today, opening the door for applications. But the Environmental Management Commission has yet to create air toxic regulations for fracking. Drilling opponents say the bill makes it less likely top-notch emission restrictions will occur. I'm Carrie Davis.
A lawyer for the man accused of shooting and wounding 2 police officers during a protest in Ferguson, Missouri, says his client was beaten when taken into custody. The police call the allegation completely false. Legal analyst Ebony Williams.
We know, obviously, with the DOJ report coming out last week, there's really just been this clear, at this point, statement that they indeed have patterns of excessive force. So that will bolster possibly that argument that's being made on behalf of the defendant here.
Los Angeles prosecutors have filed a murder charge against real estate heir Robert Durst that could carry the death penalty.
This is Steve Butterman in Los Angeles. As expected, the LA District Attorney has now formally charged Robert Durst with first-degree murder. The charge includes a pair of special circumstance allegations, including lying in wait, which will make Durst eligible if convicted for the death penalty. It's still not clear when Durst will actually be brought here to LA. He has waived extradition.
Police say a Charlotte man who has repeatedly stood naked at his front door isn't doing anything illegal, even though he's upsetting his neighbors. The Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department says the man's actions don't rise to the level of bringing charges because he's on his own property. You're listening to MCN News.
Today's news is brought to you by your 3 locally owned Cartridge World stores. Go to cwtriangle.com for the location nearest you.
Plan on a slow ride right now if you're coming in from Johnson County on I-40 from the Triangle Traffic Center. First of all, 40 westbound is slow just from heavy traffic. Highway 42 through the Clayton bypass. Maybe you'll pick up speeds for a little while, but then an injury crash blocking the left lane on the ramp from 40 west to 440 west is causing big-time delays. They are stretching all the way back to Business 70, so almost an entire way in is pretty slow. Taking a peek now at 64 bypass westbound, it looks good right now. A few cars around you, but no signs of slowing. 540 to the Beltline, you'll do just fine. At Durham Freeway, northbound's also in great shape from Alexander Drive to Alston Avenue. Our next report in less than 10 minutes. I'm Rick DeFranco, Talk Radio 850, traffic on the tubes.
Dementia and memory loss is a terrifying prospect for all of us. Recent medical studies have shown hearing-impaired people have up to a 500% higher risk of dementia, including Alzheimer's. Really? Wow. That's really scary. I wonder if it's affecting my mom. To ensure our patients hear their best for their whole lives, the audiologists at Now Hear This measure, fit, adjust, and program your hearing device with AccuFit, the most advanced technology in the world. And the result is the most natural, comfortable hearing you can have, and satisfaction is guaranteed. To learn the truth about hearing better, go to nowhearthisclinic.com. That's nowhearthisclinic.com. Or call Dr. Griffin today at 256-2898. That's 256-2898. Now Hear This Audiology and Hearing. We don't make hearing aids, we just make them work. Are you serious? 500% higher chance?
About 2 or 3 months ago, I started having money problems. Ever since then, I've had a pretty hard time keeping up with the bills. The worst part is I can't make the house payments. So when the phone started to ring and I knew it was the mortgage people calling, I didn't pick it up. I was sitting there. And the notices were coming in the mail too. Lots of them. Now I know to lose my house and I don't know what to do.
If you're facing foreclosure, doing nothing only puts you deeper in the hole. Now's the time to dig yourself out. Call 1-888-995-HOPE today. That's 1-888-995-4673. Because nothing is worse than doing nothing. The public service announcement brought to you by iDougRadio Ad Council.
The only place to talk local. Talk Radio 850.
Now, the morning drive.
I think what bothers me is the Chris Matthews sort of reaction.
Integrity is a timeless mode of conduct that does not always come into line with the federal government fiscal policy.
Well, I totally agree with that.
The talk leader for the Triangle, Doug Kellett on Talk Radio 850.
And welcome to hour number 2, 7:05 this morning. I'm Doug Kellett, David Richmond here at the controls. Rick's got our traffic updates. I'll check your forecast in just a few minutes here. And it is St. Patrick's Day, March 17, 2015. Happy St. Patrick's Day to you. And the question we have coming up, is it possible to be happy 95% of the time in your life? Dave, what do you think? Is it possible? 95%, that's a high threshold, right? Huh?
Yeah, I actually can say with this is probably the happiest I've ever been, having my beautiful wife and 3 kids. To be honest, I'm not just saying that to say it. I really mean that. So I would say 95% of the time. That might be a little strong, but it's well up there.
All right, well, we'll find out. Our guest, Dr. Walter Doyle Staples, author of Happy 95% of the Time. He's a lecturer, speaker. He's written several books, and including his latest, which is called Happy 95% of the Time, 3 Simple Proven Ways to Overcome Depression and Feel Content Most of the Time. Doctor, good to have you on the show this morning. How are you, sir?
I'm excellent, Doug. I'm excellent.
I bet you're happy, right?
I'm happy 95% of the time, which I want to explain a little bit. But, when one looks at their career path and their personal life, that was a figure that moved around an awful lot when we were younger, teenagers, et cetera, and then, maybe our early 20s and went into our 30s, into jobs, having children, maybe later on looking after our parents. That number jumped around a lot, but I've discovered a way to firm it up and keep it constant.
Well, that's good. I mean, people generally, do you find, what I guess since we're using the percentage sort of scale, where do you find most people are? Are they at 80%, 70%? Where are they?
I think most people don't really know. And that was my case. I got married when I was 27, and for 10 years, we had 2 children. We traveled the world. We lived all over the U.S. and Europe. But 10 years later, when my wife was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, my world changed. And I can say that up until that time, it was 1981 when she was diagnosed. I never kept track of it. I seemed to be going on a pretty good path, and things seemed to be working out not too badly. But then for the next 15 years after she was diagnosed, I had to put her in the hospital 33 times.
And obviously that causes a lot of stress, anxiety, depression, this kind of thing. Obviously circumstances, play a role, right, doctor? I mean, let's face it, circumstances of life can be tough.
Exactly. And, the last 5 years for many Americans and many Canadians and many people in Europe, it's been a very rough time, whether it's jobs and money. Our pensions perhaps haven't kept up with what we thought, they would be because of the stock market, although it's bounced back. But if you look at world bodies or even national institutions, they've identified anxiety and acute stress as the number 1 health problem in the world. And I'm not sure what your age is.
It's
yeah. I'm a senior now, so I've been writing and living and learning now.
I'd love to tell you, doctor, but that's classified information. It's in one of Hillary Clinton's emails, actually, sir.
Doctor, I can tell you he fought in the Civil War.
So. Oh, here we go. Yeah, but I fought for the side that lost, I think. But that's okay. That's another story.
What I had to do, though, after those 15 years and pick myself up from, being basically rock bottom, I took another 15 years. I started in about 2000, and the book came out in 2015, as you know. I took those 15 years to undo all the damage that I went through and all the heartache and all the difficulties that I was faced with, because I was living all over the world, and I had a wife that was bipolar. I had 2 children, and I had a job to do. And trying to keep those balls in the air proved to be very, very difficult. I managed to do it after a fashion. Although after about 10 years, I actually retired from the position that I had. Although I was writing all this time, my focus in 2000 turned back to basically personal wellness. I had to find some tools that didn't involve drugs. I didn't want to take prescription drugs. Most people do. At least, about half the population is taking something for some reason. And so I came across these modalities, these three approaches that the book focuses on to help myself. I was the one that was hurting. I was the one that had to find a way out of it. And so I spent from 2000 to 2015 putting this book together. And, it certainly worked for me. That's all I can say. I did the research. I found some ways of approaching this problem, and I applied them during the time that I learned them. And they've proven, to be fantastic, better than anything I could drink or pop with a pill or something like that.
Doctor, I had a question for you. This perfect that we have you on this morning, because just the end of last week, I was having a conversation with someone, and they were talking about the other person making them happy. And I looked at them and I said, if you think that other person is supposed to make you happy, or depending on them to make you happy, then you're going to be miserable. And I told them that I've always said that happiness is a choice, and you find happiness within. How do you feel about that?
It's the only place you can find it, and only you can find it, right? It is within. It's a notion of who you are. It's a notion of your self-worth, of your self-esteem. Taking control of that factor. If you let your friends or your family or your employer or your, the local government or whatever it is, if you rely on them to make you happy, or even to, look after your basic needs, you're going to be frustrated, and it's not going to happen. These other entities have lots of things to do, and one of their main priorities is not to make you happy.
Exactly. We'll pick up on this in just a moment. Interesting discussion here. Dr. Staples on with us, author of Happy 95% of the Time. How does that fit your category, huh? Mostly sunny. High today, 81. And let's go to Rick. Traffic update, see what's going on. That does not make a lot of people happy. Traffic, by the way. But Rick's doing his best here.
I am. I'm giving it my best shot, Doug. All right, from the Triangle Traffic Center, you're not going to be happy if you're coming in from Joco, because if you use 40 West, oh my goodness, delays begin at Highway 42. You stay slow all the way through exit 301. It was busy to begin with, and then there was an earlier accident that has since been cleared, but the slowdowns are still there. It's just not a lot of fun. 40 West, pretty much slow. Highway 42 through exit 301. 540 West still running okay, though. You'll be loving life if that's your route this morning. At least at this point, it looks good. Falls of Noose Road through Leesville Road, no issues, very few cars. 440 West, the outer belt line, a little more traffic, but I'm not seeing any brake lights. Capitol Boulevard through Wade Avenue. And US 1 northbound also looks good, only about 6 minutes from Highway 55 into the 40 ramps. Our next report in less than 10 minutes. I'm Rick DeFranco, Talk Radio 850, Traffic on the Twos.
There's a new barista in town. How do you take your coffee? 2 creams and 1 sugar? Right now at McDonald's, get a hot or iced McCafe brewed coffee made just how you like it, starting at $1 for a limited time only. McDonald's, I'm loving it.
If there's a fire, a police matter, a medical emergency, who do you turn to? Smithfield's Chicken and Barbecue and the North Carolina News Network are recognizing and honoring first responders across our state. Visit ncheroes.com to nominate your local heroes. Smithfield's Chicken and Barbecue will honor the outstanding station or group each month with a special plaque and host them for lunch or dinner at their local Smithfield's Chicken and Barbecue location. Nominate your heroes at ncheroes.com. That's ncheroes.com.
A student group in South Africa this month called on Jews to leave the Durban University of Technology, an act of anti-Semitism that Americans could not imagine on their own college campuses. Or can we? I'm George Douglas. Got a minute for God? A new survey of anti-Semitism at American colleges released last week shows that significant hostility is directed at Jews on U.S. campuses too. The survey, conducted by Trinity College, shows that 54% of Jewish students experienced anti-Semitism in the first half of the 2013-14 school year. About 30% of the students interviewed said a single student caused the problem. Another 10% said it came from a college club. Mutual respect among all of God's people is a very high ideal. but it is the basic tenet of all major religions. I'm George Douglas. Find Minute for God on Facebook or at minuteforgod.com.
Estate planning, long-term care, VA benefits. Join attorney Bill Alexander Tuesday for Asset Protection Today to learn more. Your calls are welcome. Tuesday morning at 9 on Talk Radio 850.
We're your car radio's talk preset. Talk Radio 850.
The Morning Drive with Doug Keller on Talk Radio 850.
Dan, welcome back. We're talking about being happy 95% of the time. The author of the book, Happy 95% of the Time, Dr. Walter Doyle Staples, is on with us. Author of a number of books in the past, including Think Like a Winner, In Search of Your True Self, and May the Healing Begin. He's on with us here. He's been lecturing, a professional speaker for more than 30 years on this subject. You know, Dave brought up something earlier about relying on other people to make you happy. A lot of people turn to faith, obviously. Circumstances can, can come and go, and other your relationships can go well or bad. How do you look at this, the role that faith actually plays in this too, Doctor?
I think it's paramount in my own experience. I've studied the world's religions. I was born, obviously, maybe not obviously, but I was born as a Protestant, raised that way, although my mother, was Catholic. But I was exposed at an early age to different religions. And then as I progressed,
you didn't nail anything on her door, did you? Just asking. I couldn't help myself. I'm sorry. There.
No, she was inquisitive. She being a Catholic and having married a Protestant, she at least had that exposure, and then she encouraged us to look at other things. And then as I matured in my 30s and 40s and 50s, I looked at Buddhism, and I looked at Hinduism, I looked at Taoism. There's something to be learned in all these religions, but there's a common faith that they all talk about, and we can all learn from that, and that is to love ourselves and love our families, our friends, love everybody we come into contact with. So from my own experience, the things that I learned about how to become happy and stay happy, faith is a bedrock. It's a foundation upon which everything else rests.
Because people who have a faith and a belief system or whatever, they just they have something to look to, something to cling to, I guess. I asked you earlier, what threshold do you think the majority of people are? You said they don't even know. Is it 80% of people, 50% happy? The time, you look at surveys, you see people tend not to be that happy about their jobs. And you mentioned the economy. They're not happy about the economy. A lot of it's circumstantial, right? It's things that are happening around them. That's what makes it. So if things are going well, I'm happy. If things are not going well, I'm not happy.
Yeah, it's like, which way is the wind blowing, right? Or how much money do I have in my checking account? Or, are my kids behaving and doing well in school? And, as we progress through our life, all these things come and go, and they change. Hopefully our kids graduate and go on and get a good job and move out of the house. So if you rely, though, on which way the wind is blowing or how strong, the sun is that day, of course, then you're at the mercy of circumstance, and that isn't where you want to be. We're all faced with challenges. We all have to deal with these challenges, and not everything in our life is working out in our favor. But that should have nothing to do with our personal happiness. Because if we let it rest on chance and circumstance, then we're always at the mercy of these chances and circumstances. And for my own case, I have my challenges.